Hello and welcome to the Midnight Archivist channel. Tonight let's gently drift back in time to a world of cobblestone streets, bustling markets, and the warm, comforting aroma of freshly baked bread. Settle in, close your eyes if you wish, and let your mind wander to the heart of ancient Rome. Our story tonight isn't about grand battles or scheming emperors. Instead, it's about something far more fundamental, something that touched the life of every Roman, from the wealthiest senator to the poorest plebeian. Bread. Bread was more than just food in Rome, it was life itself. It was the cornerstone of the Roman diet, a symbol of stability and a political tool of immense power. The phrase, bread and circuses, wasn't just a saying, it was a state policy, a promise from the emperor to the people. Keep their bellies full and their minds entertained, and the empire would remain peaceful. To ensure this constant supply, the Roman state took control of the grain supply, the annona. Gigantic fleets of ships sailed across the Mediterranean, braving storms and pirates, to bring wheat from the fertile lands of Egypt and North Africa to the docks of Ostia, Rome's port city. From there it was transported up the Tiber River and distributed to the city's many bakeries. The men who transformed this grain into the daily bread of 1 million people were the bakers, or pistores. These weren't just simple tradesmen, they were a vital cog in the machinery of the empire. Many were part of a powerful guild, the Collegium Pistorum. This guild wasn't just a social club, it was a quasi-public institution, deeply integrated with the state. Bakers enjoyed certain privileges, like exemptions from some taxes and military service. But these perks came with a heavy responsibility. They were obligated to bake bread for the city no matter what. Their work was considered a public service, a munus. For a long time, this system, though complex, worked. The grain flowed in, the ovens stayed hot, and the people of Rome received their daily loaves. But history is never static. It ebbs and flows like the tides. And in the 3rd century AD, the tides began to turn against the Roman Empire. This period is now known as the crisis of the 3rd century. It was a time of profound turmoil. The empire was assailed from without by barbarian invasions and from within by constant civil wars. Emperors rose and fell with terrifying speed, often assassinated by their own troops. The economy was in a tailspin. The silver content in coins was drastically reduced, leading to rampant inflation. The value of money plummeted, and the cost of everything soared. Imagine going to the market one day and finding that the price of flour has doubled, and then doubled again the next week. This was the reality for Romans during this chaotic era. Our story comes to a head during the reign of the Emperor Aurelian, who ruled from 270 to 275 AD. Aurelian was a strong, determined leader, a soldier emperor who fought tirelessly to reunite the fractured empire. He was known as Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. He secured the borders, reformed the currency, and tried to bring stability back to Roman life. One of his most significant reforms directly involved our bakers. To combat price gouging and ensure the poor could always afford food, Aurelian decided to change the bread dole. Instead of distributing grain, which people then had to grind and bake themselves, he decreed that the state would distribute ready-baked loaves of bread, free of charge. He even added salt, pork fat, and wine to the distribution, a generous move meant to secure the people's loyalty. This seemed like a wonderful idea on the surface. Who wouldn't want free, freshly baked bread? But for the bakers, the pistores, it was a catastrophe. Their role was suddenly and dramatically changed. They were no longer independent craftsmen selling their wares in a market. They were now essentially state employees, conscripted to bake a fixed quota of bread for a fixed price set by the government. The price the state was willing to pay them was, in their view, far too low. With inflation out of control, the cost of firewood for their ovens, the wages for their assistants, and the general cost of living was skyrocketing. The government's fixed payment didn't keep pace with this new economic reality. The bakers found themselves trapped. They were legally bound to their profession, a hereditary duty passed from father to son. They couldn't simply quit and find other work. Yet, continuing to bake under Aurelian's new system meant financial ruin. They were being squeezed from all sides, caught between the hammer of imperial decree and the anvil of economic collapse. Faced with this impossible situation, the bakers of Rome did something extraordinary, something almost unthinkable. They put down their kneading troughs, let their ovens go cold, and walked away. The bakers of Rome went on strike. Imagine the silence. The usual morning sounds of the city, the rumble of carts, the chatter of vendors, would have been pierced by a new, unsettling quiet. The absence of the warm, familiar smell of baking bread that normally wafted through every street and alleyway. For the first time the ovens were dark, the bakeries shuttered. The lifeblood of the city had been cut off at its source. Panic would have spread like wildfire. A day without bread was unimaginable. The Roman populace, accustomed to their daily ration, grew restless and angry. The stability that Aurelian had fought so hard to restore was suddenly hanging by a thread. A hungry mob was the Roman emperor's worst nightmare. This wasn't just an industrial dispute. It was a full-blown political crisis that threatened to bring the capital to its knees. Aurelian, the tough-as-nails soldier who had defeated armies and reunited an empire, could not simply ignore this. He couldn't force the bakers back to work at sword point. That would only guarantee poorly made, or perhaps even poisoned, bread. He needed their skill and cooperation, but he also could not back down completely and risk looking weak or losing control of the food supply. The historical records from this period are sparse, so we don't know the exact details of the negotiations that followed. But we know the outcome. Aurelian, ever the pragmatist, had to find a compromise. He understood that the bakers' grievances were legitimate. He responded not with brute force but with a series of reforms. He formally incorporated the Bakers' Guild, the Collegium, into the state apparatus, giving them a more official status and likely a greater voice in administrative matters. He also seems to have adjusted the terms of their service, likely increasing the price paid for the bread or providing them with resources like firewood directly from state supplies. In essence, he acknowledged their essential role and met their demands, at least partially. He sweetened the deal, making their public service more palatable and, crucially, more profitable. The strike ended. The fires in the ovens were relit. The comforting smell of bread once again filled the air, and the city breathed a collective sigh of relief. The crisis was averted. The bakers had stood up to the most powerful man in the world, and in a way they had won. They had flexed their collective muscle and reminded the emperor that while he might command legions, he could not command an oven without the baker's consent. This quiet, almost forgotten strike is a powerful reminder that history is made not just by emperors and generals, but by ordinary people, by the men and women whose daily labor sustains society. The Roman bakers, with their simple, essential craft, held a power that rivaled that of the legions. They demonstrated that even in a mighty autocracy, those who provide the most basic necessities of life hold a unique and undeniable leverage. And so as you continue to drift deeper into sleep, let your mind rest on that image. The warm glow of a Roman oven, the quiet satisfaction of a baker pulling a perfect loaf from the heat, and the silent, powerful message they sent across the centuries. A message that the need for bread, for sustenance, for dignity in one's work is a timeless and universal human story. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the drowsy corners of history. I hope this story has brought you a sense of calm and tranquility. If you've enjoyed this, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more peaceful stories from the past. May your night be filled with rest and your dreams be sweet. Good night.